So there are quite a few news stories going around right now that I find pretty interesting, and I definitely consider discussing for you guys on a video. Two of the big ones are actually both centered around Sony, and they're a bit controversial and very divisive. It has people split on all different sides of the fence here, and it's this new revelation about PlayStation 4 DualShock 4s working on the PlayStation 5, but only for PS4 games. You cannot play PS5 games with a PS4 controller. That's a whole conundrum. And then the other thing is about Spider-Man and the PlayStation exclusivity for that character in the upcoming Marvel's Avengers game, and that's a whole nother controversy, and everyone's on all sides of the fence. I do have pretty decided opinions on each one of those, but that's not what I wanted to talk about today. I don't want to dive into any of those specific news stories. It's just kind of too messy. What I instead wanted to do was focus on something I've already been thinking about separate from these issues, and it has to do with the next-gen consoles we know we're getting later this year, the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X, and when we're going to finally get the information that we really need about these machines. In fact, a couple of days ago, I very conveniently made a slightly similar topic to the one that I'm discussing today about Nintendo, where I discussed if maybe this month, August 2020, would be our last possible chance to hear from Nintendo about Nintendo games to release in 2020. Because the way I think the timing of the month of August breaks down to how the rest of the year will play out, September, October, November, December, I just feel like the timing makes sense. If Nintendo was going to give us any surprises or confirmed new games to release in 2020, I think August would be the time. If they had a Nintendo Direct or game announcements after August, that could still happen, but I think that most of what we would see would be stuff coming out in 2021. That conversation was about specifically 2020. And today, I'm taking a similar approach to that last conversation about the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and the darned prices and release dates. We are still waiting for these things. And by all accounts, we should probably expect these consoles to launch in November, and that is 3 months away. You guys, think about it. 3 months until November, the big prime holiday shopping season, the ideal and traditionally most expected time to see a new generation of consoles launch right before Black Friday here in the United States. And we still don't know about these consoles, and it's getting really frustrating. And so, just like my conversation about Nintendo and a Nintendo Direct for August being the last chance, I kind of feel like we're in a similar situation here when it comes to the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. Like, I feel like August, this month, is the prime time for these companies to finally show us and tell us what we can do and expect and pay for these brand new machines. They've now both given us plenty of information and presentations about some games we know that we can play on these machines, but we still don't know the launch games, okay? With the exception of a few. I think that we know Spider-Man Miles Morales will be a launch game for PS5. We obviously know Halo Infinite, which is effectively an Xbox One game, will be available on day one for the Series X with, the Xbox Series X enhancements and all of that stuff. But we don't know anything else about what you can buy in the store the same day you buy a new Xbox or a new PlayStation. What games can we take home from the store with us once we pick up a PS5 or a Series X? We don't really know that except for those one or two examples. And again, prices, release dates, pre-orders, where is this info, you guys? Sony and Microsoft, we know you want our money. And guess what? We want to give you our money for these machines. We want to learn this information and hear from you what you're doing so that we can say, okay, time to open up the wallet and give Microsoft or Sony, or in my case, both of you guys my money. I want your PlayStation 5. I want your Series X. I want Spider-Man. I want Halo. I want a new controller. I want whatever else I'm going to need to have. Like, I want it. So you guys, now is the time. August, this month has to be the time that they're going to show us this info. There are some things that we've heard rumors about that we still kind of expect to happen, such as this Xbox Lockhart or otherwise known as the Xbox Series S, which is not an official name, nor is this SKU or this version of the Series X even confirmed to be real. But there has been conversations about this going way back into last year in 2019 about the Anaconda and the Lockhart version of the Xbox. We now see the Series X. Now you get the Lockhart Series X discussions and talks about potentially very cheap prices for that machine. And it just kind of gets our brains thinking even more and more about what's going on with Microsoft specifically, and when are they just going to tell us this stuff? Like, if there really is a Lockhart and a Series S and the little, photoshopped white tiny box version of the Xbox, like, Microsoft, why wouldn't you be telling us about this? Why, Sony, would you not be telling us, what the price of your digital edition and the price of your standard edition for the PS5 is going to be? Not only when can we actually buy these machines, but even the dang pre-orders. It's getting really frustrating. There was even an interview with, I can't remember. Was it Jeff Keighley, I think, interviewing somebody from Sony a couple of weeks ago? I think it was for the Summer Games Fest thing. And they were talking about the rumors about pre-orders going live a few weeks ago. And the guy was like, I see that rumor getting out there. I don't know where people are getting that from. We're not ready to tell you about the pre-orders. So I guess you'll just have to wait for those pre-orders. And he was totally being nonchalant and laughing it off. And I was like, you moron. Why are you being so coy with this information? It's not funny or cute that you're just holding on to pre-order information of all things. It's just asinine and mind-boggling that this is the approach that these companies are taking right now. I think it definitely makes us wonder and ask the questions of why. Why are Sony and Microsoft being so coy about this? Why are they taking so long? In any other year, in any other new console generation, we would know this information probably 6 months to a year beforehand. That happened with the Wii U, the PlayStation 4, and the Xbox One. We got that information. Here's the release date. Here's the prices. We got those they had individual events before E3 where they gave us some info, and then at E3 they gave us more info. We're now 2 months beyond the E3 time for 2020 that would have happened if there wasn't a pandemic. And the pandemic doesn't even seem like a legitimate excuse, by the way, either, if I can touch on that for a minute, because if it was, I feel like Sony and Microsoft would be like, we're not releasing consoles this year. It's too hard to do so. But as I've discussed numerous times, you guys are probably getting sick of hearing me say this, the pandemic is clearly not slowing down game sales and game releases for most companies in the industry, and so it's obviously not slowing down Sony and Microsoft from releasing next-generation hardware of all things. If you can achieve that this year, you can achieve anything else. I'm a firm believer in that. If you can release a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox Series X in a pandemic year, you can make any game available, you can give us prices and release dates, you can give us pre-order information. And so, again, we come back to the why. Why are they not doing it? And it's obvious. We all know it, and it's even more frustrating than the already frustrating situation we're dealing with, right? And it's these two guys, Sony and Microsoft, playing chicken. We know it. We absolutely know that is what is holding up this whole stupid process. These idiots, these completely dumb companies are like, how can they be thinking this way? We know that this is what's happening, okay? They don't want to be the first one to announce their prices, their release dates, and their pre-orders. Each one of them wants the other guy to go first so that they can either have a leg up in their marketing or potentially, obviously, this could happen as well, potentially change and adjust their prices and their release dates and all of their plans based on what the other guy does. And I think that the main reason we're seeing that happen, beyond just the normal competitive situation it would be, is because last generation, at E3 2013, there were discussions and articles that got out there that said Sony was watching Microsoft's press conference about the Xbox One, they saw the $499 price, and they breathed a sigh of relief. Okay, so we can now change our price to $399. We're going to pull the camera out of it, and we're going to sell it for that. Basically just confirming what most of us already know, which is that Sony made the last-minute decision in the 11th hour to undercut Microsoft to have that lead time. Because there were conversations that they were shooting for $499, they were going to impose the same DRM stuff that we didn't want Microsoft to do, and they were going to include the PlayStation Eye camera similar to the Kinect. Sony was going to do something very similar to Microsoft and sell for a similar price, But before their press conference, they got to see Microsoft's plan, and they were like, all right, let's change our plan so we can undercut them by $100 and we can win E3, which they did. And then, of course, that helped them win the entire console generation. It's not even close. They've sold more than double PlayStation 4s compared to Xbox Ones. It's crazy. PS4 is a great machine, so of course I'm happy for that success, don't get me wrong. But it goes to show you the power of that decision, and I think that both Sony and Microsoft learned from that, and so Sony wants to probably replicate, I'm just theorizing here, Sony probably wants to replicate what they did last year. Microsoft probably wants to be the ones to do it to Sony this year, because they don't like that it happened to them last time, and so they want to stick it to Sony as a form of revenge almost. And it's like, of course I understand these motives if they're true, and I truly believe that they are true. But if they're true, of course I understand. It's business. It's big business. I understand the big business, even though I'm not a business guy. It's pretty obvious. Like, they want to sell more than the other one. They want to make the most amount of money. They want to be successful. And yes, and I want that too, but I don't think that this is the way to do it. For a while, the game of chicken made sense early on in the year. But now, like I said, we're 3-4 months away from when these things are supposed to launch. The game of chicken has to end. It's got to be done, man. Stick a fork in it. It's done. One of you guys, both of you guys really need to just tell us what's going on. And so I bring this all the way back to the thing I said at the beginning, where, similar to my theory with Nintendo, I also theorize that this month is the time. And not only do I think August should be the time that they tell us this info, I kind of think it's going to be. I really actually think, for all this ranting and hooting and hollering I'm doing in this video, I actually think that the end is coming. And I think this month, both Sony and Microsoft will be telling us pre-orders, prices, release dates. So that's the way I see it. That's my personal armchair analysis, right, as just a part-time YouTuber discussing this and somebody with, 40 years of gaming experience under my belt. That's what I think is going on. That's the problems that I see, and it's also, when I think this is going to end. This month. I think this month they're going to give us this info. So what do you guys think? You hear my thoughts and opinions. I want to hear your own thoughts and opinions on what Sony and Microsoft are doing and when we're going to get this information. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.